Welcome to How to Do Digital Ministry, the show where we talk about how to do digital ministry. I'm Reverend Jim Keat, digital minister at the Riverside Church, director of online innovation at Convergence, joined today by Reverend Ashley Dargai. We'll get to her more in a minute, but today we're talking about what is Substack and how can you use it for ministry. We'll share some of the latest news that intersects with the world of digital ministry and answer some of your questions, specifically one of your questions today. We're not getting too out of control, but Reverend Ashley Dargai, you are an ordained minister, a mom of two, and a general angst enthusiast. That's from your TikTok bio. You're in Texas, so I'm guessing it's a little warm for you. That's generally what I assume of Texas. Okay. How are you? Mom of two, that's kind of a new gig in your life. And angst enthusiast. I'd love to maybe go a layer deeper on your nihilism there. What's going on in your corners of the world?
Yes, so I have two kids. The youngest is 5 weeks old. So we are sleep deprived and very hot. It's like averaging 105
Whew.
for like 3 weeks straight down here. So we're staying inside. And that just adds to my layer of angst because I have a lot of climate change angst.
Ah,
So it just, going outside reminds me of our impending doom. So um,
she says with a smile on her face.
yeah. So yeah, I am definitely I would consider myself a nihilist. In that I don't have like a lot of hope that that humanity's going to pull it together and Will Smith is going to swoop in and the world's going to be saved and everything. So just kind of what we're seeing now, I feel like that doesn't give me a lot of hope. However, but it's made me think about how do you be a Christian with that outlook?
Yep. Yep.
Some people I respect a lot really feel like things are going to pull through and live their life in that way. And I respect that. But for me, I'm trying to figure out how do we live in the world of climate change and, floods in Vermont and, terrible weather in the South and boiling water in the Gulf, like all of that. How do we live with that and then also be resurrection people? Like, what does that even mean? So,
And that definitely comes through in the stuff you make online. Substack, you write twice a week. We'll get into that in a second here. And TikTok, where you've been TikToking for a good while. How long? When did that start in your world?
I got on TikTok during the pandemic, like a lot of the world.
Okay. Yep. Yep.
Yeah, and was lurking for a while, for a
Yep.
long time. And I was in a pastoral job that had some limits for the kind of creativity that I could exercise, and so I exercised it on TikTok. And so like you mentioned that my TikTok activity has waned a little bit, and part of it is just because I feel like my creative juices are flowing in other ways that
Yep.
they weren't for a while. So
Yep.
yeah.
Well, I definitely, you know, the hopefully nihilistic posture you take, I've encountered on TikTok. I've encountered in your writing, and we're not here to talk about that, but I love that stuff too. Uh, I just think that's so necessary because otherwise,
Mhm.
if it is this like, let's just wait for a spaceship called heaven to beam us up someday, we miss out on actually being present with people in the
Yeah.
reality of here and now, which is sometimes good, sometimes very much not so good. And I think of even the fact that we can't solve all the problems. Sometimes people say, if we can't solve it, let's not do anything about it. And it's like, well, that actually is less helpful. I was listening to an interview with
Mhm.
President Obama a few weeks ago, and he was talking about a conversation he had with his girls and how, as a globe, as a humanity, we're not going to hit some of the climate change benchmarks to solve this. Like, oh, we needed to hit a certain temperature, and we're probably going to be like a degree or 1.5 degrees short. So do we just give up? And he's like, no, because even coming in 1.5 degrees short means that the Philippines won't be flooded with water and millions of people won't
Mhm.
die. So we might not save everything, but we're still going to save millions of lives along the way. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's all falling apart, but we can at least catch someone once or twice or be present with someone along the way. And maybe if nothing
Mhm.
else, that's the role of ministry, which you've been doing hospital chaplaincy, which feels very much about that palliative care kind of posture towards reality.
Yeah, in seminary, I remember us in pastoral care class, there was a whole like maybe it was just one class. I feel like it was a big part of it, but talking about how, pastoral ministry has changed over the past few decades, kind of what our outlook is, and really that we are more like chaplains in the apocalypse. And I feel that. And, I'm a literal chaplain, but also like thinking about like, well, how, if the world is ending, how are we going to live until it
Yep.
ends? Because in a
Yeah.
way, we all will come to our personal worlds come to an end. So
Yeah. Yeah. None of us are ever going to outlive entropy. We are just a
yeah.
blip on the grand scale of, evolution. But that those are all fun conversations too. For more of that, follow Ashley on TikTok or subscribe to her Substack. Speaking of, look at that transition. Let's talk about Substack. So, what is it? Why? How did you get into it? How could other faith leaders use this platform? Just give us a little overview intro to these waters that you've been splashing around in.
Yeah. Well, Substack is basically like a newsletter meets blog. So it's an actual like platform. Like you can go to Substack, but then you can also land in people's inboxes. And then there's an app that you can read that you can download so that you can kind of just read your feed, and which is what I do. And, I have a 5-week-old, so I spend a lot of time rocking and scrolling in the middle of the night. So it's very helpful just to read things that are not just, like the New York Times or Instagram. So I have been blogging since Zanga, like when that was a thing.
Yes. Uh, we are definitely
So
both the same geriatric millennials here. I think that's a good way of the Zenga generation. That's a good way to say it.
there's like a someone tweeted that was like, oh, I've lost followers. I used to write whole blog posts and to no one, and I loved it, and that was very true. So, so blogging, I mean, it feels very familiar. Like Substack doesn't feel new to me in that it's just a different platform, same thing. So,
Yep.
um,
It's more like, finally, you're back. I've been waiting for you.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, like blogs were big and then they kind of went away, like the popularity of them. And then now Substack is a thing. And Substack is great because you get to keep your followers. So you get to bring in people, you can bring in like a mailing list. But if you were to leave Substack, like Substack doesn't own them. And you get to take it all with you. And then you could monetize it if you'd like, which is what I do. I have like free subscription content and then paid subscription content, really cheap. I pay a couple of subscriptions myself, so that I can get lots of content. So um, I don't. I think I just like started subscribing to someone on Substack. Like it just showed up on their website or something, and then I was kind of into this world. And what I like about it is, unlike blogs, it's really uniform. It's a uniform look, so you're not like concerned with like building a website or like adding music or anything like that. It's like you have some graphics, but for the most part, it's just words. And I like it. I mean, I feel like there are some that I read that are really long, but for the most part, they're like 1,000 words, which is just a couple of minutes. And yeah, so I really appreciate Substack because it kind of gives you have like all sorts of creators on there. Like it's not just people like musing or pontificating. Like you have like fitness instructors and cooks and photographers who are talking about stuff. And
Yep.
so,
Yep.
yeah.
Oh yeah. My Substack subscription feed is probably a slightly lopsided balance of progressive church folk like yourself. Nathan Webb has one for digital ministry stuff. Nadia Boltz-Weber, Diana Butler Bass,
Hmm.
people like that do Substacks. And then I have some running stuff I follow. So like Ali
Yeah.
on the Run is a great running podcast, and people like that and stuff. So, and like you said earlier, I think one unique thing is that it's an email newsletter. Like it exists as people get this sent to their inbox, and you still get to keep your email list if you left the platform, which is different than when we were all
Hmm.
on Zenga or Blogger or whatever. We were just hoping people subscribed to our RSS feed and Google Reader
Yeah.
back when that was a thing. And now you're sending your stuff directly to people's inboxes, to a place they're
Hmm.
opening. You're not at the mercy of Zuckerberg or Musk's algorithms on will this make it through to the top of the tumultuous waves of content. Like, no, everything you post goes right into my email. It goes right onto my phone because I have the app on here. Which is something I think so valuable. As much
Mhm.
as email feels like, not at all a new technology, it's far from it. And we're all kind of probably buried and overwhelmed and mostly annoyed by it. Remember when we used to like email? Like you'd be like, ooh, Groupon, what are you giving me today? And now it could be like, Groupon, you're giving away free houses. I don't care. Archive, unsubscribe, delete, get out of my life. So, but still having that direct access to people's space
Yeah.
without the manipulation of an algorithm is really valuable. And
Hmm.
Substack allows you to have that direct contact and connection. And given that it's, social internet kind of 3.0, 2.0 stuff, it allows for conversations to go back and forth. People can comment, interact, reply,
Hmm.
all that kind of stuff that's multi-way, which we're used to on the internet. I love that. I love that. What else would you say to like a church leader, pastor, faith leader person who's like, should I use this? What are the ways that maybe it's an individual pastor or a church? How could they dip their toes into these Substack waters?
Yeah, I mean, I think that pastors are already trying to do something. If they're trying to do stuff online, they're trying to like get things out there to start conversations or to like put out even like devotional material for their church. And Substack is a great way because you probably already have all the emails of the people at your church. So something, this data that we collect. But it's a way that you can either send parts of your sermon, you can send out a Bible study to prep people, or thoughts to prep people, devotional material. You could have letters. I mean, it's really, or you can also like record podcasts and put music on Substack. So, and it's really intuitive. I think it's easy to learn. I mean, if you're already using some kind of different kinds of platforms, and Substack's pretty easy to learn. And there's a lot of content out there to help you learn Substack too. So when I was getting onto it, I listened to some podcasts about how to like maximize stuff on there, and so it's a way for pastors like to get in the email inbox of people. And to start conversations, and you can customize it exactly how you want,
Yep.
like how people comment, or how like you can do threads, or like if you want to put some audio stuff on there, or invite people to write for you. I
Yeah. Oh,
think
yeah. That's
it's
a new thing they launched semi recently of allowing guest
mhm.
posts and things, which is kind of fun.
Yeah. So yeah, I think it's a pretty easy way for pastors to get in there.
Yeah, I know. So I sit, doing a lot of stuff at a church in Riverside Church in New York. We use, a generic email platform thing. It's called
Hmm.
Benchmark. It's kind of like the Mailchimps of the world, which does things really well to some extent. But I playing with Substack, I'm like, man, it'd be interesting to see the ways if a church were to use something like Substack as their primary mass email platform. I think you'd have some shortcomings. I don't think you can do segmentations. You can't like be like this just goes to members instead of everybody. You might be able to do things like paid versus free, but if I wanted to send a member announcement versus a email list announcement, so that's a shortcoming. But what I like is I feel like there's a different psychology in how I approach writing for Substack versus how I approach writing for like a MailChimp kind of a thing. One feels very announcement-y and one feels just more human person relationshipy. And I love the thought of a church or just even the pastor of the church using a thing like Substack as their primary mass communication platform for email, just for all the reasons we described, how it would let you still keep the data, email lists, get in their inboxes, but then it just feels more relational rather than more bulletin board. That's at least the vibe
Hmm.
I get from the ones I read. I feel like I'm getting a message from a person, not just like organization announcement speak. So,
Yeah, and you can also like recommend different Substacks.
oh
So
yeah,
people are always asking like, what should we read for Sunday school? And like I feel like the default is the Upper Room. Like that just it just persists. It's like a bacteria or something. Like it never goes away. And no offense to the Upper Room, but like this just like the go-to, especially for a certain generation. But like it's a way for you to recommend new thinkers without being threatening, without like stuffing it down people's throats and being like, oh, I read this really interesting, Sarah Bessie had something about how to deal with people who are deconverting, like this past week. Like this was an interesting read, and there's no pressure. But it's a way just to kind of like give some subtle exposure that's even less threatening than like reposting something on Facebook.
yeah, that's good. That's good. All right, I like this. I like this. So, anyone watching, listening, if you end up dabbling into Substack, personally, great. We want to know. We want to see what you're up to. But I'd love to know of if a church is trying it. And I'm thinking of ways that maybe Riverside could experiment. That could be interesting. There could be some fun stuff. Maybe I'll scheme something in the next for Advent or something and get back to us all on how it goes. But I definitely think it's also interesting to note just how Substack has, blossomed in the past couple of years. And I think that just says something about the psychology of people on the internet today. Like, it seems like we want blog, email, newsletter stuff again. In a world of, 60-second flip on your phone content, here's people who are like wanting to actually sit and read something of a little more length. It's not too long, but it's like, it's actually takes presence and a little more discipline than just swiping through Instagram or TikTok. And I like just that shift in culture, that we're open to a diversity of media and how the landscape isn't just video, even though video is still a great thing to produce. No big deal. I'd love to see an Ashley Dargai YouTube channel someday. But I think Substack just allows for us to be present with written content in a really intentional and meaningful way, which as churches, we're kind of big into written content. We have a whole book that we've kind of been poring over for a couple thousand years or so. It's like the original Substack. Oh, that was a bad joke.
Yeah, and I think too, like I was just gonna say, like it gives us like sustained exposure to thinkers that we like. Like we don't have to wait for a book to come out. We
Yeah.
can like hear their thoughts. Like I subscribe to Maggie Smith, her Substack, and she's a poet and a writer, and so I don't have to like wait for her books because a lot of her Substack is talking about like process, which I love
Mm,
that. I love learning about writers' process, and so that just makes me appreciate her writing even more. And like she quotes a bunch of other writers that I've never heard of, and so I think it kind of one thing that someone said about Substack early on when I was like reading about it was that what people are wanting is not necessarily more content, it's more exposure and more
mm.
access to the writer. And I think that that's helpful too with church, is that it can give you a step
Interesting.
into the leaders of the church or church life. It can give you like behind the scenes stuff. And I think that's really helpful, especially in a world like where we need some more transparency in the church. So, um, yeah.
And like we've been saying, the way people encounter it is so accessible.
Mhm.
Whereas not everyone knows how to or wants to learn how to navigate all the swipes of the internet. But like, okay, subscribe and it's going to show up in your inbox. Or you can download this app.
Mhm.
Or here's the link. You can go read the direct post. There's multiple ways to get to the same piece of content, and Substack seems to make that work across all generations and how we use the internet. Like, I feel like my 75-year-old parents could get a Substack, and my 3-year-old could probably figure out how to open it on my phone. So we're at a good range. If every human in my life can read "Everything Is Crumbling" twice a week by Ashley Dargai.
Yeah, I wonder what your 3-year-old would think of that.
He would think you need more Peppa Pig.
Mhm.
Substack is great. Everyone go follow Ashley's Substack. It's Substack, no, ashleydargai.substack.com. Is that right?
Mhm.
There we
Yeah.
go. I'll just put it on screen. This right here. Or go to the show notes and click it, and you'll get it there. But now we're going to shift and talk about the news. This is the part where we talk about what's happening in the world related to tech, digital, anything at all that might intersect with the world of ministry. So I have a story that I saw pop up it was on Reddit. Someone posted a screenshot on Threads. Do you mind if I go first? I'm excited about this.
Go for it.
Okay. So I'm aware that ChatGPT is a thing, and I've used it here and there for stuff, but I have not like dove in the deep end of AI. I blame life with 2 children and the fact that I'm training for marathons. I don't have time to do everything in the world, so I got to choose. But this I found. Let me find it. I'm going to show you. This was Amanda Palmer posted a screenshot of this on. Oh, that's not it. That's my child. Of this on. Here we go. Aha. She posted this on Threads. And someone did this. They said, I was feeling sad today, so I asked ChatGPT to write a fake biblical passage about Jesus accepting trans people. Oh, I just love this use of ChatGPT. Here's what it came up with. And a woman whose heart was divided between spirit and body came before him. In quiet despair, she asked, Lord, I come to you estranged, for my spirit and body are not one. How shall I hope to enter the kingdom of God? Jesus looked upon her with kindness, replying, My child, blessed are those who strive for unity within themselves, for they shall know the deepest truths of my Father's creation. Be not afraid, for in the kingdom of God there is no man nor woman, as all are one in spirit. The gates of my Father's kingdom will open for those who love and are loved, for God looks not upon the body, but the heart. A few things I love about this. I love that Amanda Palmer shared it, first off. I just love that I found it on Threads, not X, thank God. I like that ChatGPT was smart enough to write this, which I think is amazing because I've had some skepticism about ChatGPT's use as a pastor type, but I feel like this is actually semi-decent pastoral care from a robot. However, we need to teach ChatGPT to use more than just the pronoun father for God, because that's going to create other problems for the algorithm later on in its life. But I just thought that was really cool. Had you seen that anywhere on the internet in the past few days at all?
Yeah, I saw it on Instagram.
Yeah.
It's lovely though. I love it.
I know. Because I've seen ChatGPT do some really not so great things. Like I've played with it, like write me a sermon about this, or various stuff, and it's like, okay, that was kind of obviously not the best. But I'm like, this is actually pretty fun. And what I love most is how it could actually provide care for somebody. I feel like a person in that space could be like, oh, I could hear Jesus saying this, or it gives them the sense of a voice. And even though obviously it's not printed in the book, come on, I think God is still speaking. I'm not UCC, but I love
Hmm.
that phrase. And I just
Hmm.
love that the robots like this can even invite us to imagine what God might say to us in these moments. So that's my news. It's
Hmm.
news-ish. It's more just like I found a cool thing about ChatGPT and was excited to talk about it. So there you go.
I love it. I love it too because like if you think about how the arc of, the moral universe, the theological universe in scripture is bending, 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 even off the
Yes.
pages. This is like we're like connecting a dot here. Um,
Oh, I like that.
so
It's like this is where it was
mhm.
going. We just needed to
Yeah,
keep turning the pages. We would have gotten to this one eventually. Yeah,
yeah.
I love it. All right, what about you? You got any news for us?
Yes. And so just stay with me. So what I have been following the story of the orcas who have been organizing to take down, millionaires' yachts, specifically off the Iberian Peninsula. And I think that this is interesting because these are, orcas kind of like terrorize the seas. I've watched a lot of TikToks from marine biologists who talk about this. Like I don't know where it is, but there is a team of, or there's one orca who has been teaching other orcas to take out the livers of sharks in the
I
area,
saw
and
that.
it
Yeah.
scared the sharks off. Yeah, which is kind of awesome. Like, um, so, but orca, this is like typical orca behavior to just do stuff like this, where it's like they are really just playing right here. This is unexplainable, evolutionary behavior. So obviously, the orcas taking down these yachts have been really fascinating, and there's been a lot of like discourse about like class revolution and ecological revolution. In the wake of climate change, like nature is taking things back, which I love. But I think that the memes that have showed up, like who do we Venmo? Like, what's the Patreon for these orcas? We're land people who are in support of this strike and everything. And I think it's really interesting just to see how the narrative has been shaped on social media
Mm,
of what's happening with these orcas. Like, well, I don't know how this story would have been reported 50 years ago or even 20 years ago,
yeah.
but now it's like the orcas are the people's whales, like
Yeah.
and it's like we're living vicariously through their actions, and imagining, a certain kind of world by what they're doing. And I think that's really interesting because, I'm a preacher, I'm a former English teacher. I obviously write on Substack. And so I think it's just really interesting to watch how this narrative has been shaped and who has laid claim to this narrative. Because when this story first came out and the memes were coming out, I think there was something either in the New York Times or the Washington Post where someone wrote like, don't be cheering for the orcas, like, and it's like, did a yacht write this, like what's happening here? And so like we have like the elitist take, like these poor yachts, or like we should be concerned about the orcas' behavior. But then you have like this lower class, the millennials and
Yep.
Gen Zers who can't buy a house and who are living in climate change, all this kind of stuff. And we're like, yes, like down with the billionaires and take us too, honestly, like we deserve it. And so um anyway, so I like this story because I think it shows how we can, like, how the narrative is changing, how social media is changing
Mm.
how we shape a narrative.
And even just how we access the information, and then how the way it's communicated becomes its own thing. Like the fact that there are memes, like you've been saying about it,
Yeah.
is it goes beyond just Walter Cronkite reporting it, on the evening news once and it's done. There was some interesting behavior off the coast when some ships and some sharks ran into some trouble. No one quite knows what it is. Back to the billionaires, whatever. It just allows for the masses to have a different kind of voice, and even the way it allows us to just see a different angle on so many things happening in society. Like look at the other strikes happening right now with UPS workers
Yeah.
and the writers strike and all these things, where it becomes, the wealthy tiny percentage who continues to have all their power for the detriment of society, and then the people who are, making the world beautiful in what it is, whether they're orcas or writers or delivery people. We're like, no, yeah, suck out those livers and take down those yachts. And how social media has shifted the way that narrative happens. That's fascinating.
Mhm.
That's fascinating. It almost makes me think, like, if there's ever ways we look at how preaching as this art form that pastors have done is evolving, I would like to say that's it. It's those kinds of online comments that are the preaching. That's the comforting the disturbed and disturbing the comfortable. It might not be the person gripping a Bible from a pulpit, but it's still, the word of God being brought to life in the world around us in whatever way it needs to come to life, one orca and one meme at a time. Yeah. Didn't John Calvin say all creation preaches anyway? So we just got to listen to
There we
that book of
go.
nature.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. Go Orcas. I'm on team Orcas and team
Yeah.
delivery people and team writers. Basically, I'm never on team billionaire unless I win the lottery, in which case I'll give most of it away, hopefully. And I'm never on team banning the books. That seems like a given,
Yes.
just to declare my sides. But now we're going to move to some questions. Well, just one question, because I need more. So for those of you watching, there's a way you can send in questions. howtodigitalministry.com is a website that redirects you to a Google form, and you can fill out the form and then you can send in your questions and we'll answer them. This one came from quite a few people in different forms, so I just condensed it into one. So sorry for no individual is credited, but this is from a massive view. And simply the question is this: how do you pick what social media platform to be on for ministry? I wanted to bring this up with you, Ashley, because I know you're in lots of social media places, but I feel like TikTok and Substack, if I call that a social media, are where you've kind of, started building a foundation for the digital cathedral you are preaching from. But what advice would you give to a pastor or faith leader if they were just to sit down with you across from you for a cup of coffee or a glass of wine? How do you pick? There's so many choices. How do you pick which one to be on for ministry?
I think it's important to remember that we are finite creatures. We have finite amount of time and resources and an ability to learn new social media platforms. So, I think if it's just one person or one church and, you haven't hired a full-time social media manager, you have to be really picky about the things that are interesting to you, that the places that you're going to spend a lot of time. I spend a lot of time on Substack and TikTok, like not working, like just watching stuff and reading stuff. And that's helpful because then it helps me, be better on those things.
Yep.
And it doesn't quite feel like work most of the time. It's, enjoyable. So I think it's helpful to remember that we're finite, and the push to do more and be everywhere and be on all the time. That's a capitalistic mindset. And so I feel that pressure sometimes. When Threads launched, I was like, oh, I miss Twitter so much, but I have not been on Threads at all since the first time. So I have other things going on in my life. So maybe in a different season, So for me, it's things that I find enjoyable and intuitive. And
Yep.
some people are really, really good on Twitter. I had two tweets go viral ever. And one was about the Ten Commandments. And then the other one was I had stitched a quote from one of my favorite authors, R.O. Kwan, that said, all this skincare and I'm still going to die. And I just posted the stitching, and it's really on brand, those two things for me. So I was proud of that. It wasn't some stupid tweet or something. So, um, but for me, I'm not gonna like try and expend myself and spread myself thin because I'm a person outside of my social media platforms, and that's where I prioritize my time and energy. So I chose Substack because I've been writing forever and I love writing, and I find it a way a way for me to kind of clarify my own thinking. And then TikTok has just been really fun. I never thought that I would be like on a video platform or editing videos, which is it's very like rudimentary what I do. I edit directly on the TikTok app, which I know some people, go outside of it, but it's been fun for me, and it's been a way that I like understand, um, like how people are talking and putting out messaging, and there's a lot of layers to a really good TikTok video. It's sometimes it is someone just talking, but sometimes there's a lot of interesting things going on, that I find really fascinating. So for me, that's what's worked for me is I've just picked things that I have found meaningful and energizing, and that I can do. And it's not that I don't like Instagram or Twitter or YouTube. I'm on Instagram all the time, like my personal Instagram, but they're just not where I've chosen to do where I can spend energy.
Yep. Yep.
Um, so yeah,
I
so I
love
would
that.
just start from your finitude, like, and go from there.
I love that as the advice. Start from your finitude. That's that. If you start making t-shirt, any sort of merch, that's a good one to put on there for sure. Yeah, I think it was Buechner who said vocation is where your greatest passion meets the world's greatest needs. And I think it's that sort of thing. And then it was
Yeah.
me who often says, why half-ass anything when you could full-ass one or two things? We try to do everything, and it's like, you're not going to do it all very well. So just like actually do something. I think it can be helpful to be aware of what's out there because you might be like,
Mhm.
oh, if I was only doing my thing, I would never have gone beyond whatever and ever discovered Substack or whatever the new thing might be that like that's actually tapping into something within me. But I think the minute you try to do everything, you end up doing mostly nothing.
Mhm.
And I think it's helpful, to ask like, who is this for? Like, if you are a pastor at a local church and you're trying to do something in social media spaces with your local congregation in mind, and local can mean people who show up in the building or show up online. Local has a new meaning now, I think. You can ask them, where are you? What is the places online where they are? And then you should show up where they are. I think the role of ministry has always been to be where the people are. I learned that from Jesus and the Little Mermaid. And so you should just show up. But then you can also ask, where are the people that I feel called to connect with? And that might be someone
Yeah.
different than the people who are sitting in your physical or virtual pews. And then you need to ask, what bar do they go to? And how can I get in line and go to? Metaphorically speaking, TikTok kind of a thing, Like that's my approach at
Mhm.
Riverside. Our congregants aren't on TikTok. Maybe a handful are, but we know there are people on TikTok who we at Riverside want to engage with and share, a
Yeah.
different way of understanding church and theology and God. So it's worthwhile for us to reach people beyond our walls and our pews. And at the same time, we haven't given up Facebook because a whole lot of our congregants are on Facebook. So it makes sense to be where your people are. Don't just ignore who you're serving, but also be aware of who God might be calling you to reach out to next. Or just go to Substack because that's a lot of fun. But I do think you got to go to the places that energize you. Like if it just is
Yeah.
a labor to even open the app as your own work, are you ever going to sustain this thing? Ministry is never a
Mm.
100-meter dash. This is a full marathon. You got to train and run the whole thing and pace yourself and hit all the aid stations. And that's my only metaphor because I'm running marathons these days. But I think you got to do things you enjoy. So if there's no sense of like, I like this in it, you're probably not going to last. And if you don't like it, find someone who does and then empower them to do it because that's going to be the way it's better for everybody. So there's probably 1,000 more layers to that question, but I just love even that, dipping our toe into what it could be. But
Mhm.
for the world out there, if you have other questions about digital ministry, howtododigitalministry.com, type it in. You can ask lots of questions and they'll all come my way and we'll drop them in on an upcoming episode. But this one has been a lot of fun. Ashley, always great to chat with you about all things in the world. Substack, TikTok, anything else we need to know about where to find you on the interwebs these days? Can we find your Zanga? Is that still active or did that go away 15 years ago?
Thankfully, that had went away. Yeah, we do not want to read what I wrote then. Yeah,
But we
it's
do want to read what you're writing now. So everyone should subscribe to Everything is Crumbling by Ashley Dargai, which sounds like the name of a good book you should be writing if you're not already, but I have a hunch that maybe you are. No announcements yet. Okay. Well, more to come. Can't wait to see everything else you continue to be up to, and we'll definitely check in and hear more tips, tricks, advice for all things digital ministry that you're up to and that the world is up to. So we'll talk to you again on the next one. Bye, everybody.